See that it is now 10. I would like to first thank you for joining us for our January Wednesday workshop to introduce you to the NCAE candidates for president and vice president. And I'm glad that you're taking advantage of this opportunity to get to know them better, as I will be getting to know them better myself prior to the election. And it's been very close down to the wire since filing has just closed. And they actually have, I think, until this Friday to withdraw their names. We do have with us this morning Christina Cole, a candidate for president, and her running mate for vice president, as Sandra just indicated, will be joining us is Riley Finnegan. I have received an email just a few minutes ago that our candidate for vice president, Matthew Poston, will not be able to join us, but he has sent me a message, and I'll try to, if I can get my throat clear, to read it to you without too much taking up too much time there. We have provided the candidates with some possible questions that they may be addressing during their presentation. But we ask that if you have questions to place those in the chat box that's down at the bottom of your screen. And as time permits and without duplication, we'll try to respond to some of those if we can get to that. But we also always want to honor everyone's time for participating, so that we try to keep this to no more than 60 minutes. So we'll try to wrap it up. And if there are questions that still need to be answered, I'll give that up to the candidates how they would like to respond to that. And I should go back, because I always kind of assume everybody knows who I am and that they've participated before, but this may be your first time logging into a Wednesday workshop. So I'll go back and say, I am Levita Weatherington, the co-chair of our Quality of Life Committee that facilitates the Wednesday workshops. And as the facilitator, if you have a topic you're interested in, please, by all means, send it to me or send it to Carol, and we'll work on getting a speaker on that topic. We've covered a lot of things in the past, and as I indicated earlier, many of them are recorded and are available for you to go back and look at on the NCRSP website. And it seems to be growing in popularity. So that's been very encouraging for me and Carol when we started out this adventure many years ago, coming out of COVID. So with no further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Christina and Riley.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm really excited to be here this morning, and hopefully my running mate, like Sandra said, Riley Finnegan, will be joining at 10:15. He too is still working in a classroom in Chatham County, so he might be trying to get to school before his next class just after 11. So good morning. I'll do a little bit of introduction of myself and why I'm running with Riley. And like Levita said, you all sent some questions, so I would love to spend some time in discussion answering those questions, but also hearing from you all as our retiree members. I'm Christina Cole. I am from Western North Carolina, from West Jefferson. I am a proud product of Ashe County Public Schools. I came to Raleigh to go to Meredith College and eventually became a special education teacher. Spent 4 years working in middle and high schools in Wake County. I loved it so much, teaching English and curriculum assistance for students with disabilities. Then I went to Central Service for 4 years to work in Wake County's Office of Equity Affairs, where I was doing professional learning and professional development with teachers, helping them on culturally responsive pedagogy and restorative practices. That was during a Trump administration and COVID, so that was a lot of fun. And I've been an active member of NCAE my entire time since I was an SNCAE member. When I was in the classroom, when I was in Central Service, I became Wake NCAE Vice President in 2019, and my entire vice presidency was during the COVID pandemic. Also fun, did a lot of work too, like you all did as retirees, getting shots and important safety protocols for public school workers before us and our students went back into schools. And I became Wake NCAE president in 2022, and I've been a full-time release local union president ever since, running campaigns in Wake. We've run a health and safety campaign around school facilities in a bond. Now we're running a special education campaign. I say I've been waiting my whole life for this special ed campaign to get about $31 million in funding for staffing and incentive pay for special ed teachers. And again, the whole time an active member of NCAE, I've been a trainer for summer member organizing. I'm a member of the board. I'm the Region 5 director on the board, so happy to serve. And that way, and speaking to you all as retirees, I really try, and I know I could do better to involve my retirees in local processes. I have a retired educator, Paulette Jones Levens, on my GR committee. She does advocacy and lobby days with us any opportunity we do. Tama's been around, comes to our mass meetings and our Victory Fridays to make sure we're trying to capture our active members who are retirees directly into the division. And I think that that's something we could become more systematic on, the connection between active and retired. But I'm starting to get into the questions now. That's a little about me. Lavita, I don't know if you want to pose the questions or what your process is this morning, but I will follow y'all's lead on how you want to do that. Oh, you're muted if you're talking to us.
Thank you for the reminder. I always try to mute so that if the phone goes off, you're not hearing it in the Zoom. Well, our first question was, what is your perspective on the role of NCRSP as a division within the NCAE organization? How will you engage our retired members? And
Great. Thank you. And I encourage all, if you're in a place, oh, I see Riley's on. Can we pause before we get into the questions and maybe let Riley, hey, Riley, my running mate and teacher in Chatham. Riley, I just did introductions. If you want to introduce yourself, Lavita just asked the first question, but I'd love for you to say hey to our retirees.
Hey everyone, really glad to be here. Sorry I'm late. I had to get out to my car to hide from the middle schoolers. But yeah, I'm really excited to be here, running for vice president as Christina's running mate. I'm in Chatham right now. I'm teaching middle school, but for the last several years, I was teaching high school in Durham and helping run the Durham campaign. So happy to share a little more about that, but I'll kick it back to Christina for the questions. I caught that last question, so I'm ready.
Great. Welcome, Riley. And I'll say, y'all feel free to ask questions in the chat and respond. I think in response to the first question, first and foremost, I am genuinely interested in how retirees want to be engaged and want to be collaborating, connecting, building systems and structures with NCAE headquarters. I, want to do a lot of listening and learning because you all have been teaching and working and part of this organization for longer than I've, been in public schools or been alive. So I think there's a lot of legacy and institutional knowledge that we need to tap into with our retired division and our retired educators. And I'm really excited to do that work with you all. So to learn with you all have a large base of members, 7,000, almost 8,000 members that we could tap into for all the power reasons, whether that's our political power, connecting with the active locals and supporting the work of the locals, and vice versa, active supporting the work of the retired division. So that's first, because I applaud the work you all already do, and I would want to bolster like the time and money you all invest into our organization. Like, how can we continue to do that? I've seen your willingness to fundraise for the foundation and actively lead on the foundation board. And I think the thing I'm most impressed by the retiree division is the willingness to move our electoral work forward, whether that's through raising PAC dollars or investing time with candidates and politicians. I see Linda and Colleen in Raleigh all the time, going to the legislator, more of that, spending time on phones and doors and being out there as best you all can. Um, and I understand from listening to some retirees that you all want to be engaged in the political program more directly, more member democracy and say on the decision making of our government relations work and our electoral and political work. I myself am often confused as a local president about how we use our PAC dollars, how we raise the money, what races we're investing on, and how much. And that's a place where I would really like to collaborate with NCRSP and retired educators, because I know you all have a legislative committee, legislative contact teams, right? So I think that's a great way for us to engage our retired members. And like I alluded to earlier, I think a robust pipeline into retirement. I have members ask me all the time, Christine, I'm retiring. Who do I talk to? I would love to get them directly in touch with our retired educators and members. I know Colleen, Sandra, lots of you do retired workshops, more of that, where local leaders are working with the regional directors of the retired division to have trainings and workshops on, and then recruit directly into the division. So we continue to bolster y'all's membership and power as retired educators. The last thing I'll say, and maybe kick it to Riley, is just reiterating, I really want to pose these questions back to you all, not in a facetious or dodgy way, but in a genuinely curious, how do retirees want to be engaged with active, with headquarters, and broadly with the entire association? That's my long but short answer. Riley, do you want to answer that or add anything I didn't say?
Yeah, I was just reading the chat. I think co-sign everything Christina said. 7,000, 8,000 members is a ton of people who are still engaged and still true believers in North Carolina public schools, are really passionate about fighting for the schools our kids deserve, and are passionate and really outraged by what's been going on over the last decade. And so, yeah, more connection between the retiree division and our active member like campaigns. What I've seen in Forsyth, with I know Colleen helping a lot there, is I think a really exciting model. Shout out to Colleen. We need people who can go visit a school right during the school day. We need people who are willing to phone bank and knock doors. The way Christine and I see it, to this question in the chat about the General Assembly, is the next 3 years is about really leveling up the reach of our campaigns, and that's going to take everybody we've got, and I know the retiree division has some of our most committed folks with the most insights about you know, how much damage has been done to our schools and to the profession. So more connection between our active local structures and the retiree structures in those same regions, so that we can get everybody on the same team, working on the same kind of legislative priorities to hopefully break this stranglehold in the General Assembly and get us the funds we need, restore healthcare for new retirees, stuff like that. All feels critical. And yeah, I would just underline again, to Christina's point, conversation with y'all's divisions, and your committees and structures about the kinds of work, and the kinds of way to engage. I'll be honest, as a local leader in Durham and Chatham, um, I haven't seen up close, I guess, the sort of collaboration and connection between the retired members in a place and the local. So need to do more conversations and listening and figure out kind of how to get everybody in the same meetings, work in the same plan and stuff like that. But I see, yeah, just a ton of potential as we continue to expand our campaign efforts into door knocking, phone banking, uh, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you for those responses. And I think you will find that this is a very active group of members, because we fought the good fight many years ago, did our share of marching on the governor's mansion, and et cetera. So we're not the quiet retiree group that I first entered in 2010 by any means. I will share the responses from Matthew, but I will not read them out loud right now. Since they're in written form, you'll be able to read them for yourselves. The second question is, how have you advocated for retired educators in North Carolina? And can you point to any specific initiative you've led or supported on their behalf?
Yeah, this is a great question. I think I'll reiterate what Riley said. I think we being active, me being awake NCAE president and leader, can do a better job of active to retired, retired to active, local to state, all of that. Like I said earlier, part of what I try to do as the chair of my GR committee is make sure we have retired educators represented when we're doing our endorsement meetings. We have a couple of lobby days every spring and fall where we're asking questions about our issues. And of course, we shine a light on retiree issues, COLAs, health retirement plan, health state insurance plan, all the things. And I was looking at NCAE's website, and I would love to see all of our issues listed there. I don't see retiree issues listed there. Y'all have a great website, NCRSP, where I could easily see your COLA letter and all of those things, where I, as a local leader, can share that. With my people. I put a link to the RSP in my all member emails, right? I think there's more we can do systematically and with the structures that exist, like Riley was saying. And I think a lot of your questions in the chat, what I've learned as a local leader and president, is because you all are so active and organized and have committees. I wonder how we use your structures to ask, what do retirees want to do on these issues, and how can the state affiliate and headquarters really support you all in moving that forward, just like we do it at our work sites with our committees and our locals. So again, I'm really curious how you all want to use the structures you have, and how we as the state affiliate and president, hopeful president and vice president, can support you all in that and not be a barrier to making that happen.
Yeah, I would just tack on. I mean, going back to like 2019, I remember Macola was part of the big statewide walkout then. And in more recent years, in Durham, we haven't had a lot of retiree specific demands per se, but we're doing our best to shift our culture towards one that sees growing membership of NCAE and building the power of NCAE to be something that benefits active workers, students, retirees, all sort of part of the same strategy. So y'all built NCAE up. We look back right to the 90s of like 50,000 members and having a building downtown in Raleigh and all that as something to get back to. And right now, we're at 18,000 members active, right? So that's less than half of the height that NCAE was at when I'm sure a lot of y'all were active. And so my priority over the last couple of years in Durham, we tripled active membership in a year, right? We went from 700 to, I think we more than tripled, right? It was 700 to 2,700. And to me, that's mission critical, right? For retiree issues and active issues and student issues. Because without a powerful and growing NCAE, I don't see us having the political power to win COLAs, to win raises, to win, the things we need to restore to the profession. So, that's kind of the painting with a broad brush, but given where we're at and the attacks we're facing, it feels like figuring out membership growth and then being able to turn that into material wins and political power is like all roads lead through that question. And I've been, proud to do, I think, some of the biggest member growth work in the organization and to see what Christina's up to in Wake. And I see kind of every problem we're trying to solve requiring that level of growth, recruitment, structure building, campaigning. And then, to Christina's point, making sure that there's active participation of retirees so that the specific demands and things that y'all care about are also being spoken to. But we we got to have the power first to win it, right? A bunch of smart demands and a small organization isn't really going to get us anywhere. So we're trying to, um, yeah, grow and then be smart about what fights we pick and what we can win. And so, yeah, I see it all as all part of the um, same big effort to stand up for the schools, stand up for the profession, and win stuff for y'all and for active folks so that we keep public schools in the state beyond the next 10 years. Because, the way Christine and I see it, I didn't mention this earlier. I'm a Guilford County Schools graduate. Public schools, I think, are the most important thing in our state. I'm a civics teacher. I think if the public schools get privatized, our democracy, our communities, everything is going to fall apart and take a turn for the worse. So we think the next 5 years is pivotal to build the power and the membership that we need to keep fighting into the 2030s. So that's kind of where I see the Durham fight being connected to retirees, the Chatham fight connected to retirees.
Hey, the question really was addressing something maybe you had done in the past, but that certainly sounds positive for the future. Which leads us right into the next question, which is related to that. While NCRSP develops legislative priorities for its membership, such as a COLA, which we have not received since 2019, how can these be addressed by NCAE and included in your legislative agenda?
I think to Miss Sandra's question in the chat too, do we have a plan to encourage and include retirees on the active locals GRC? I think that is part of the plan. I think that should be. I know lots of retirees in Durham also participated in endorsements and things like that. So at the local level, first is one way that we ensure we're working with and developing legislative priorities together is one way. And I think that I would ask the same question at the state level. Are retirees included on the state level GRC, Government Relations Committee? I believe they should be. If you all currently aren't, we could easily and quickly make that change. Same thing. How are our retirees involved in all the processes at the state level? The endorsements, the what work are we doing for candidates? What legislative races are we targeting, and how are we calling the question with our politicians about issues that matter to retirees? And like I said earlier, like on the website, making it look good too. We care about students and active and retirees. Here's how all of our issues are connected. I think we need to be clear that we're a united front across age and experience and active and retired. I think that needs to be really clear to the public and to the legislator, again, to Riley's point, to showing our power. And again, I'll reiterate using the existing structures you all have. Again, looking at your website, seeing legislative committees, legislative contact teams, like those are ways for us to connect with each other as working class people and members in the organization, and also to make something happen if we need to go to the legislator or we need to flex our power, like Riley was saying, because we're growing in our locals and the division is getting stronger together.
Co-sign everything Christina said. One thing I want to bring up on this question is the strategy. I see in the chat kind of questions about engaging politicians sort of across party lines and stuff like that. Um, the way the way I see it, and I'm excited sort of about what the statewide campaign NCAE has been developing has taken shape, is that we need to be mapping everybody in the General Assembly on key questions to really find out who we can actually count on to stand up for public school um, interests across the board, even when it gets hard. Um, and so, that's finding the right questions and calling the right questions so that we, you know, can split the Republican Party a little bit and find where there's fissures and you know, fractures in there block in the General Assembly. That's also calling questions and finding out which Democrats are like true champions of public schools and which ones are a little bit more wishy-washy and not dependable. And you know, we really need profound change in leadership at the state level in North Carolina. Um, and so finding questions like, you know, do you support public workers' collective bargaining rights? I think is a really interesting one to really test and find the kinds of legislators that we can count on to really fight and stand up for us, and go move beyond just accepting that people who run and say they want to give teachers a raise, like that kind of thing, right, is pretty easy to talk that talk. And we I think need to get a lot more serious and strategic to find out who we can really count on and trust going forward to yeah, to fight for us in there and not just do the easiest thing or make excuses. So that's one thing, you know, on the strategy and power piece, to figure out how once we identify the right priorities and demands, which I think Christina spoke to well. I think we know how to do that as an organization, with a lot of strong democratic processes. And it's a question of once we have those priorities, then how do we move them forward and actually get some wins and actually get the people in office who are committed to moving those priorities forward. And so maybe last thing I'll say is, you know, identifying the priorities and demands is also really critical on the front end, like way ahead of election season when we're doing things like trying to recruit candidates and run people for winnable seats in the General Assembly, like knowing as far out in advance as we can what the key questions are and what the commitments are we're asking of those people, is step one, and then really getting everybody, all our members, all our parents involved to win some of those races. Finally, is exactly what me and Christina are trying to do. And there's other unions in the country, like Unite Here, that we want to try to learn from. Like they're really, really effective at taking out lawmakers that are doing, you know, things they don't like and things that are harmful to their interests. And we want to, yeah, get a lot more serious about being able to do that here in North Carolina, and use what y'all's priorities are, what active workers' priorities are as ways to test and find which people are actually on our team and which people across party lines we can work with.
Thank you. I think you've begun to address the next question as well, and I think you alluded to that maybe Sandra had asked it in the chat. I haven't kept up quite with the chat because didn't want to get ahead of myself. But how will you ensure that our NCRSP members are involved in the election process of candidates for the North Carolina General Assembly, such as the House of Representatives and the Senate? And I see this as part of the endorsement process as well. And I know we had some concerns last year expressed about not being able to uh, give money to some positive candidates because they had not been endorsed and had not gone through any processes with NCAE, and we were real concerned about that as a executive board. So could you address that one?
Yeah, I think for all of these issues, generally, I'd love to be, I don't know if this is true now, but I'd like to be in regular, consistent contact with the division's leadership, president and vice president, the executive board, whether it's quarterly or every other monthly or whatever feels right. So, one, we're proactive about this because, like Riley said, in particular on our elections process, we have to be really serious. Like these people are kicking our butts right now, and the midterms are here in 26, and we really only have 28 and 30 to right this ship. So we need to get real serious about how often we're meeting on this, what our processes are, so we can win, and have some strategy and win. Absolutely is the first thing I'll say. And like I said, the endorsement process starts at the local level, whether that's school board and board of ed and county commission and all of those, where I think retirees should be actively working with our active members, the local GRCs, on recruitment, endorsement, what our endorsement means, and what we're doing for those endorsed candidates. And then that goes to the state for approval to the by the GRC. Same thing. Retirees should be engaged there, and there should be some two-way communication between the local and state about where that endorsement process is, why we did or didn't endorse candidates, what it means to withhold an endorsement and why. That's part of a strategy too. We don't have to endorse everybody, especially if they aren't moving on their issues, regardless of party, to the question in the chat. And then same for national. We want to send Roy Cooper to the Senate. There's an endorsement process there, and retirees should be engaged in that with that same way communication between our base of members, each of the boards and each of the committees responsible for that. And again, it really is about member democracy and members being at the center of creating those processes and making decisions together. And I know that's a huge part of Riley and I's campaign platform is members, and that includes our retiree members being at the center of decision making and us deciding together who we endorse and how and why and what that means and what we do for those candidates in every cycle and in between every cycle too.
Yeah, on this, a little bit of background that I'm really proud of. That DAE in 2024 knocked over 7,000 doors for people like Mo Green and Allison Riggs. And those are all volunteers. I think we confirmed about 2,500 votes for those folks. So, had we not done that work, Riggs wouldn't have won her race. And I think we filled 400 volunteer canvas shifts. And the only way that worked was having an organizing committee in all the different work sites in Durham. And what I see as a way forward, or what I would hope as a goal, is to start treating retirees the same way we treat like a high school or a set of schools, and make sure that we have a committee of leaders in the same meetings, you know, to move that kind of work forward, whether it's talking about endorsements or turning people out to take action. Because the truth is, there's schools in our district that aren't engaged. We got members at schools where they don't have any leadership or structure, and those people don't hear about the meetings. They don't come, they don't take part in the action. And right now it feels like that is in a lot of our locals, the situation with retirees. So I see it, it's been a breakthrough over the last few years for NCAE active members to start building these committees like Durham did, Forsyth, Asheville, Edgecombe, Wake is doing it. So I want to try to take that lesson and extend it and treat, the retiree members of a local as, a as a base of members that needs a committee, needs some leaders coming to the same campaign meetings as the active members, so that, whether it's turning people out to an endorsement meeting or signing people up to canvas, I see it, right, being all kind of work where we're all on the same team. And, that's a delta. That was one of our things we didn't make happen in Durham in 2024, right? We could have achieved even more and knocked even more doors had we had, built that and recruited that committee out of retirees. But as we go forward and try to replicate that big committee model in a bunch of locals, that is a piece that I think is really important to add, because that would just add in a bunch of active folks who wanna be part of making change happen. And when it comes to a cold work site, I mean, Christina knows this. She's in the biggest school district, one of the biggest in the country. There's schools in Wake that don't have a committee right now, and we know exactly how to go about finding leaders at those schools, right? It's a matter of capacity, but we know how to make calls and do visits and find people who are willing to commit and be leaders of that committee. And so I would see that our base of retirees as a similar challenge, and a thing we can prioritize, right? Getting them into the organizing committee spaces so that when it's time to mobilize, when it's time to take action, um, we're all in the same conversation together. And yeah, I think it would level us up even in our stronger locals like Durham, to add that piece more robustly and just sort of pull folks into the same organizing structure and decision making structure as active members.
You, both Christina and Riley. At this point, I'm going to do two different things. First, I'd like to read the email that I received from Matthew. I will put his Google link for his responses in the chat. And then after I've done that, Christina, if you and Riley could address the questions that are in the chat and allow enough time. I've got a timer over here on my left, but allow some time for your closing remarks at the end. So about 5 to 10 minutes before, if we haven't finished answering them, we'll just call it stop at that point so that you'll have a chance for some closing remarks. Does that sound good? Okay. This is from Matthew this morning about 9:30. I truly appreciate the invite to the NCRSP Wednesday workshop. I was hoping my administrator could find me coverage so I could connect to the vital and experienced part of our union, NCRSP. I have taken time, which you all deserve, from someone looking to co-lead NCAE as a candidate for vice president to answer the 5 questions which you have posed. I have tried to, as specific as possible without writing a thesis. However, I believe the voice of NCRSP members and your charge or mission statement should also guide my advocacy to strengthen the voice and resolve if I'm elected. Please accept my sincere apology for not being able to attend the workshop due to my work requirements. I have attached a Google Doc link and a PDF with my responses and a short biographical statement for your members' viewing. I look forward to being informed on future meetings in which I may attend. Again, thank you for allowing me an opportunity to share my beliefs, and vision for NCRSP. Please share with your members, which I will share in the chat. So, Christina, if you will now, you and Riley take over the questions that they're in the chat box. We'll move from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I see several questions about like procedural, specific procedures or rules of engagement from Miss Deborah, or Joseph was asking earlier about like budget questions or paying for an office at headquarters. I think a lot of those things can be solved again with regular meetings together, and that's the beautiful and hard thing about building an organization is we have to constantly decide together all the time based on changing context and conditions, how we're going to spend our money, our dues, resources, how much we're going to invest when, what the procedures are. So Riley and I are both really open to figuring those things like procedural and budgeting questions out together as we figure this out, like truly. And we don't pretend to say we have answers to all of those things or proposals, but we're open to that and open to consistent meetings around, again, procedural or discrete things that we can figure out together as leaders of this organization. I do especially want to address Sandra's question. Someone else asked it earlier about inactive locals, right? Like Miss Sandra Hatley said, an example of us not having enough strength and power, failing to recruit members across the state, as opposed to focusing on urban areas mainly. I think you all know the rapid decline of our organization post-recession, post the election of Obama in 2008. So we lost a lot of members, which means we also lost a lot of structure in a lot of places, both active and retired parts of the division. So we are truly rebuilding our organization since the attack on our profession, losing all the things we know we've lost since 2008, 2012, especially. So part of what we have to decide as an organization together is how are we targeting our resources. And Miss Sandra, Organized 2020, the caucus that Riley and I got our start in, was really members were building up in Wake, Durham, and Guilford and really transforming those locals at the local level. And we know large urbans and Charlotte too run up the vote on statewide races like Allison Riggs, Anita Earls, Mo Green, Josh Stein, and we need voters in large urbans to do their thing. We also need voters in rural areas and we need strong locals there. What we're finding through these campaigns that we're running, to Joseph's question about membership recruitment, the way that has worked best, the method that has worked best, we've learned in the last couple of years to recruit members and build structures in urban and rural places, both. This method is tried and true, is structure-based organizing in campaigns. And that is not a service we offer to locals. That is something we have to be strategic about. Is a local ready? Is there a leadership structure? Do they even have a budget to input local dues in order to run campaigns and make a local go? And those are assessments we have to make. And again, to be good stewards of our dues dollars, not a dues dollar to waste, we, leadership, the board, the executive director, etc., have to decide where we're going to strategically put resources and how and why. And Riley and I believe we need to bring back services. Like we need to reintegrate effective services for our members. If members are paying dues, they should get a friendly person on the phone to help them navigate an issue. They should be able to get in touch with someone at the advocacy center. They should be able to talk to somebody through their evaluation or their retirement or whatever it is. And that's also been a part of the breakdown of the last 20 years of our organization that needs to be rebuilt. So I say that to say strategic targeting of resources for field campaigns, and we need to make sure we're building up all locals and doing it in a strategic way with our dues dollars. So try to answer multiple questions there, Levita. And I'll say Riley and I, again, we don't pretend to act like we know everything. We have been offering campaign platform meetings where people can give us feedback on our platform and also just open to more meetings like this. It's January, the election's in March. There will be a transition period. So we definitely want to be in conversation about all these questions. And I'd love to get the questions out of the chat so we can be sure to address them long term too. Riley, are there any questions that I missed or things you wanted to say to answer some of the questions in the chat?
Yeah, I would just um, add in a little bit about that urban versus rural thing. I think it is a really important question. One reason I decided to work in Chatham County this year instead of Durham was to um, experience a little bit of organizing in a different context and experience the conditions in a different place. And because Chatham is more of a swing district than Durham is in terms of the General Assembly. So it's undeniable that a lot of our path to power in the legislature goes through some purple and some reddish rural counties that still care about public schools. And so I think for sure it's not any kind of we can't win with just urban places. But to Christina's point, we saw Edgecombe County do a campaign very similar to Durham, and it worked, right? And so that's a real concentration of membership growth, but that concentration means that all those new members have meetings to go to, structures in place, and are much more able to be engaged and mobilized into action. And so, like what Forsyth is doing, Forsyth, I believe, has signed up 1,000 members this year. 1,000 members in one county is a lot more valuable to us when it comes to taking action and moving voters than 1,000 members spread out across 100 counties, because a lot of those folks won't have meetings to go to, won't be engaged. So we do need breadth and we need coverage, especially of flippable districts in the General Assembly. And to Christina's point, we have to be really, really smart between now and 2030 um, to not spread our resources too thin and to choose really good targets because even the Democratic Party is not trying to win races in all 100 counties, right? Because they would just lose if they tried to fight 100 fights at once. They're, you know, getting down to brass tacks, and they know some places are not up for grabs in 26 and 28, and they're going to put their energy towards, the places where they have the best shot of winning. And so, given our position right now and how high the stakes are, it feels like, yeah, being smart about you know, what counties are the highest priority in this moment of defense is key. And I think a lot of those counties are rural. Some of them are urban. I think it's a mixed bag. And yeah, to Christina's point, the kinds of services, the kinds of trainings, the kinds of information that's available to all members in every county, I think is a place we can also improve. So, um, you know, even if a place is not getting a bunch of organizers sent in, I believe there's members and leaders in some of those counties that could step up and build their own local, with just a little bit of support from the center. And we got to make sure that that's happening too. So yeah, I think it's a combination, but if we do the kinds of campaigns that NCAE has been doing the last few years, Durham, Edgecombe, Asheville, Forsyth is a really great kind of win streak. And if we could get 10 more counties to that point, 15 more counties to that point in the right places by 2028 and 2030, I think we flip the General Assembly. And then, then we can start talking about different sorts of wins for our schools and our people. And until we do that, right, a lot of our demands are falling on deaf ears because the stranglehold right now in the General Assembly, they're doing this on purpose, right? They want to privatize and shutter our schools. So no matter, how smart and moral our demands are, they've shown us they don't really care. So it's about picking the right fights and going a few places at a time and building us up. Back to that 50,000 strong that we used to be, but not trying to do it everywhere all at once and spread ourselves too thin, but do it in a systematic way so that we don't waste any of our dues and we don't miss any of our opportunities. Also, I'm just going to Christina did it. I was going to put our platform in the chat. I'll do it too. If you want to see any more kind of about how we see organizing across urban and rural, political program, growing membership, like how we see it all fitting together. And yeah, we'd love to answer any other questions about that. I responded to one other question in the chat about like streamlining the process of signing people up for NCRSP when they get to retirement. That seems like a huge, weak point in our processes right now that there's a number of ways I could imagine it improving to make it more automatic or to make sure that every worker who's retiring, NCAE member who's retiring, is at least getting asked to join NCRSP. I think that's a no-brainer. Making an ask of 100% of people. I could also see ways we could explore making sure it's more of an automatic thing, so it's like an opt-out rather than an opt-in. And Christine and I have talked some about what that would take in terms of our membership form or our bylaws to see if we could make it more of a automatic commitment if someone's paid dues for their whole career for NCAE. It doesn't seem like much to ask for them to pay their retiree dues and stay a member for life. But the way we're currently set up, we're leaving a lot of members and resources on the table by not having a good system for that, which is, in this moment unacceptable because we need all the resources and members that we can get. So I think that was the only other question I saw in the chat that I wanted to respond to. Yeah, I think so. Anything else, Christina? I guess, is it closing remarks time?
We are approaching closing remarks time. So, Christine, if you'd like to offer some closing remarks, and then Riley, and then I will close out for the morning, trying to keep honor the time of 11 o'clock being our cutoff time.
Absolutely. We will always honor the time of working class folks. That's right. I think I'll end the way I started, just with gratitude and appreciation. One, for the invitation and the opportunity to be in conversation with you all this morning, but also, again, to your legacy and leadership over decades in this organization. Just really, really grateful. I would not be here if Paulette Jones-Levin, who retired after she was president of Wake NCAE, didn't ask me to step into leadership. So I'm forever grateful for that. And I again want to reiterate and highlight how eager Riley and I are to learn from you all and dig into these questions even more, both on a big picture vision, imagining the best future together for our North Carolina public schools, and down to the nitty gritty. What are the processes? What are the forms? What meetings should retirees be in? How do we get our active and retired division involved? All of that is just so true as I leave this space with you all this morning. I encourage you to look at our platform. We would love to do another 1 or 2 or 5 or however many of these sessions it takes, so we feel ready on the transition on July 1 to make this a smooth transition and to really get into the habit of being connected and collaborative with the retired division. So thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, same here. Huge gratitude for the opportunity to come and talk with some of y'all, and hopefully the start of some ongoing conversations with those of you I haven't had a chance to speak with directly yet. Our information's on that website and the platform. I'll put my email in the chat, and phone number as well. At this point, right, anyone who's gonna get on a Zoom at 10 a.m. To talk about this kind of stuff, right, is somebody that we need to stay connected with and to talk with, right? We don't have time to waste. We don't have capacity to waste. We don't have dues to waste. It's kind of one of me and Christina's mantras. And this, is no small feat, right? To get 40 people on a Zoom talking about how to take action together and how to make change that needs to be made. And so, I'm very impressed. I'm very grateful. And I see, tons of possibilities if we can actually start to make the most of our membership. You know, Retired educators, active educators, we're some of the most trusted people in our communities. We're leaders in our communities. If we can find ways to speak together, speak more loudly, reach more people, I think it's possible to flip this General Assembly and get our schools back. And I think it's mission critical. I think it's sort of battle stations time with the amount of funding that's been siphoned off, the amount of attacks, now more than ever. We need any group of 40, any group of 10, we can get together and talk about plans and how we're going to fight, is a huge opportunity. And look forward to, more conversations like this, and would love your support so me and Christina can continue carrying this vision forward and, get our organization back to where it was and into fighting shape and powerful enough that we can start, fixing things that need to be fixed for our kids and for our profession.
I'd like to thank both of you for so generously giving of your time today. It was quite a journey. You may saw me chuckle there when he mentioned his email address, because it took a while for me to get correct email addresses for both Christina and Riley, even though I was inviting them way back last year. They didn't get those invitations until much later. So my sincere appreciation for them making the time for us this morning. I always want to reach out and say thank you to Carol McLam, our staff person who comes and facilitates our Wednesday workshops. It's always a pleasure to have her working with us. And she sends out the notices and takes care of all the technical stuff for me. So I just get to sit back and play hostess here. And I would like to thank everyone who participated today. I always just so heartfelt for the participation of our members in topics that we present to you. And so with that in mind, I'm going to do my advertisement for next month. Next month, we will have the candidates for the NCRSP election that's coming up this spring as well. And so you'll have a chance to look at the candidates for our statewide office. And then in March, we will have our Convention 101, which we have done annually for the last several years to help our members understand and get prepared for the state convention. So without further ado, again, thank you everyone for attending. Thank you, Christina and Riley, and have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon.